Hi guys, it's Mrs. Polk, and today I'm here to talk to you about single step and double step metric conversions. Before we go ahead and get into that, we need to talk about what SI units of measurement are. So scientists use a set of measuring units called SI, or the International System of Units. In this section, we are going to focus on grams, meters, and liters, but there are other units within the SI system that we will touch on later. Go ahead and pause if you need to, move on when you're ready. So there are three types of base units that we're going to talk about. In SI, the base unit for length, or the straight line distance between 2 points, is the meter, which is characterized or abbreviated by the lowercase m. The base unit for mass, or the quantity of matter in an object or sample, is the gram, which is characterized by a lowercase g. And the base unit for volume is liters, which is capitalized by a capital L. In this case, when we're talking about volume, we are talking about liquid substances. Go ahead and pause if you need to, and then restart when you're ready. Sometimes we work with numbers that are either too large or too small. Prefixes like kilo, milli, and deci help us to express the numbers without too many zeros or decimals. For example, we could say that 1,000 meters is equal to 1 kilometer, or 1 kilometer. We could also say that 0.001 grams is equal to 1 milligram, or 1 mg. Go ahead and pause if you need to, continue when you're ready. So there's a few steps that I'd like you to follow when you're doing your problems. The first is to read the problem. If it's a word problem, reread the problem, and this time underline what you're beginning with, square your conversion factor, and circle what you are ending with. Then you're going to write your roadmap. Your roadmap is where you're going to write your first unit, an arrow, and then your new unit. This roadmap will become more important when we get to double step problems. For example, we have this problem. It says we know that a football field is 91.44 meters long. How long is that football field in millimeters? So I read it once. I'm going to go ahead and read it again, and this time when I read it, I am going to go ahead and underline what I'm starting with and circle where I am ending and squaring my conversion factor. So it says we know that a football field is 91.44 meters. So this is what I am starting with. So I will go ahead and underline what I am starting with. It says how long is that football field in millimeters? I want to go to millimeters, which is right here. That is what I'm ending with. And then I need to go ahead and square my conversion factor. So I put a square around that conversion factor. Go ahead and pause if you need to, and restart when you're ready. In order to switch from different units, we have to use conversion factors, which we've talked about already. The desired conversion factor unit always goes on top, so wherever you are going goes on top. What you are starting with will always go on the bottom. So for example, I'm going from meters to kilometers. Since I'm starting with meters, meters will go on the bottom, and kilometers would go on top because I am ending with kilometers. However, if I want to go from kilometers to meters, kilometers would be on the bottom and meters would be on top. Kilometers would be on the bottom because I am starting with kilometers, and meters would be on top because that is where I'm going. Our next example is to convert the height of Mount Everest. We know that it's 8,848 meters, and we want to convert it into kilometers. We are going to multiply by the conversion factor on the left, which is this conversion factor here. So I start with what I know, 8,848 meters, multiplied by that conversion factor. Since I'm starting with meters, my 1,000 meters is on the bottom, and I'm going to kilometers, so 1 kilometer is on top. When I take 8,848 and multiply by 1 and then divide that number by 1,000, I get 8.848 kilometers. Go ahead and pause if you need to. Move on when you're ready. Please make sure you write down this math problem that is right here, this math problem, on your notes. Okay. Skip this problem for now. So, your first little assessment question. Which of the following is an SI unit for volume? A, liter, B, gallon, C, meter, or D, quart? If you said A, liter, awesome job. Way to go. And then how many meters are on 50 kilometers? Is it A, 0.5 meters, B, 5 meters, C, 500 meters, or D, 50,000 meters? So we are starting off with 50 kilometers. We want to go to meters. And I know that for every 1 kilometer, I have 1,000 meters. So I would set my problem up with 50 kilometers. Make sure you write your units. Units are important. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply by my conversion factor. And we said that 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. I'm starting with kilometers. So kilometers would be in the bottom. And meters would be on top. That 1 will always stay with kilometers. So I have a 1 here. And that 1,000 will always be with meters. So I have 1,000. Do 50 times 1,000 divided by 1. If you did that math correctly, you should have gotten D, 50,000. This is the end of our single step problems. Now we're going to move on to our double step problems where you could have 2 conversion factors back to back, or you could do 2 separate equations. So sometimes you may be asked to go from one prefix to another, and there are 2 ways you can do that. First, you go from your prefix unit to your base, and then from your base to your new prefix unit, which is essentially doing 2 math problems in a row. Or you can do the second version, which is doing 2 conversion factors in a row. I prefer doing the second option. You may choose to do the first. That is up to you, but you have to do it correctly. I will show you both in the next example. Please pause and move on when you're ready to go. Alright, so our first example, we have 145,680 milligrams, and we want to go to hectograms. So I'm going to start off with 145,680 milligrams. Okay. I forgot to mention that we need to go ahead and do our roadmap. So our roadmap is really important. It tells us where we're starting, where our pit stops are, and our ending unit. In this case, I'm starting with milligrams. And eventually, I'm going to be ending with hectograms. But I do not have a conversion factor to go straight from milligrams to hectograms. So I have to go to a pit stop somewhere in the middle. If you notice, I am dealing with the base unit, grams. In order to go from milligrams to hectograms, I first need to go to grams. So I'd go from milligrams to grams to hectograms. Roadmaps are required when you are working with 2-step problems, so please make sure you use your roadmap to help guide you to make sure you are in the right spot. Now back to our problem. We are starting with 145,680 milligrams. I need to first go to grams. If I look at my conversion chart, I'll know my conversion factor. If I look here, I'm starting with milligrams, so I have milligrams on the bottom, grams on top. When I look at that, we know that there is 1 gram for every 1,000 milligrams. When I take 145,680 times 1, I get 145,680. Then I'm going to take that number and divide by 1,000. And when I do that, I get 145.680. And in this case, if I check my units, milligrams canceled out, and I am left with grams. Sometimes notice that your 0 at the end of this number would be dropped off in a calculator. It is okay if you do not write that last 0 at the very end, because according to math rules, that 0 is invisible when you're talking about decimals, if it's at the end of a decimal point. I will always include it. If you forget to include it on a test or a quiz, as long as you did your math right and the rest of your numbers are 100% correct and you just forgot that 1 or 2 ending 0, you're fine. So, notice here that I am in grams, but I'm not done yet. I need to go from grams to hectograms. So I need to take that number that I just found, 145.680 grams. And now I need to go to hectograms, which I can easily do with my conversion chart. So remember, grams is on top, so grams need to be on the bottom, and my unit on top of my conversion factor would be hectograms. If I look at my chart, I know that for every 1 hectogram, I have 100 grams. My gram units will cancel out, and when I do 145.680 times 1 and then divide by 100, I get 1.4568 hectograms. Do not forget your units. Now I can check my roadmap to make sure I'm where I want to be. I am. I want to be end in hectograms, so I'm done with this problem. This example was done using the first method, where you would have 2 separate problems. I'm also going to show you another method where you have only 1 setup. I'm actually going to do it down here. Okay, so instead of doing 2 separate problems, I can go ahead and do 2 conversion factors back to back. So I'm still starting with 145,680 milligrams, because that's still my starting factor. I still need to go to grams first, so I'm going to multiply by that conversion factor that we talked about up here. 1 gram over 1,000 milligrams. Okay, if I look at my units, I'm still in grams. I need to do 1 more conversion factor, so I'm going to just tag it on here. Notice that grams is on top of my first conversion factor, so that means grams would need to be on the bottom of my second conversion factor. And I'm ending in hectograms. So hectograms would be on top. And if I look back at my conversion factor, we know that for every 1 hectogram, I have 100 grams. Now if I look at this, I cross off the grams. That's good to go. I am left with hectograms. Now I need to multiply everything in the numerator, or the top of my problem. So I'd take 145,680 times 1 times 1. And then divide that by the product of my numerator. So I would go ahead and multiply the bottom, 1,000 times 100, and use that answer. So in your calculator, what you should be putting, so you can follow PEMDAS, or order of operations, is in your calculator, in order to solve this problem, you should put parentheses, 145,680 times 1 times 1, end parentheses. Then you're going to hit your division button. And then you would add in parentheses 1,000 times 100. Okay, and you hit enter. You have to enter in your calculator just like that, with all the numbers on top in parentheses divided by all the numbers in the bottom in parentheses, because if you don't, your calculator will not follow PEMDAS. When you do that, when you add that information to your calculator, excuse me, I erased it. When you add that information to your calculator, you would still get 1.45680. Going on to the next problem. I need to go from 4.5 kilograms to milligrams. I am going to stick with the second method that I showed you, so I'm only going to do it one way this time. If you liked the first method, you may use that, but I am sticking with the second. So I am starting with kilograms and I'm going to milligrams. So I'm going to go ahead and write my roadmap. Kilograms to grams, because that is my base unit. And then I'm going to milligrams. Okay, so I'm going to start off with what I know. I know that I have 4.5 kilograms. I'm going to multiply by that first conversion factor to get from kilograms to grams. So since kilograms is on top, kilograms would be on the bottom, and then grams would be on top. When I look at my conversion chart, I know that for every 1 kilogram, I have 1,000 grams. If I look at my units, kilograms will cancel out and I'm left in grams. But I'm not done yet. I'm only at my pit stop. So I need to add on my second conversion. I need to go from grams to milligrams. So notice grams is on top, so grams will be on the bottom. And I'm going to milligrams, so milligrams would be on the top. So I'm going to do 4.5 times 1,000 divided by, the conversion unit. We know that there's 1,000 milligrams for every 1 gram. So I'm going to do 4.5 times 1,000 times 1,000 all over 1. There's my grams, I cancel out. So when I do that math, I get this number. 1, 2, 3. I get 4,500,000. And I can't forget my units. I am ending in milligrams. So 4,500,000 milligrams. Alright, please make sure you have those practice problems written down and let me know if you have any questions in class. I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you. Bye.